Hey everyone, happy December. Hope you're all having a good time. As we close down to Christmas, we're getting our gifts early with the second to last episode of the Devil May Cry series boss rankings. We only have 20 bosses left to rank, and they're all the cream of the crop of the Devil May Cry franchise. So, without any further ado, let's get started. Number 20, Malphas. Hell's mightiest sorcerer, huh? Then why are you stuck on a chicken? That's weird. You're weird. But hey, in spite of the weirdness, Malphas is a good fight, and thankfully one that doesn't require too much explanation. Either she's going to attack you with magic spikes and magic blasts, or you're going to get run down by a piece of KFC that didn't quite get fried enough. The charge attacks are the worrying bit, from the chicken. They come fast, and if they catch you after you've used up all your evasion options, they hit damn hard. They can even stun you into getting hit by the next charge. They come quickly. Thankfully, Nero has 3 jumps, an air taunt, enemy step, and 2 Cerberus shots, so I really don't think running out of evasion options will be a problem for skilled players. Taking down this boss is a fun dance, soaring through the air before charging in to lay the smackdown on the sorceress, helped out by Nero's incredible air moveset. Another cool mechanic worth mentioning is that you can actually slay the chicken first, causing Malphas to have to resurrect it and leave herself open for several seconds. If you can wail on enough damage in this step, you'll leave Malphas open for a nasty buster attack, one of my favourites in the game, and V even periodically chucks you Devil Breakers to keep your arsenal stocked. Feel free to go ham. There's not too much to add to this really, it's just a well put together and fun fight. Thank you. 3-headed chicken bird lady witch thing with tits. This is a fucking weird franchise. Number 19, Vergil from DMC. It's been a good while, but it's finally time to kick another game out of the rankings. Behold, the last gasp of DMC Devil May Cry, the final boss fight with Vergil. Or, if you prefer, Vergil, milady. The reboot's version of the franchise's most iconic boss battle, and it's not that bad. Actually, it's pretty good. As we'll see later down the line, it's pretty much impossible to fuck up a Vergil boss fight. I won't be mentioning the story build up here to save time, and I will try not to compare him to previous battles with Vergil in the franchise, in order to focus on what this Vergil brings to the table that's all his own. So, what does he bring? He attacks with swift and powerful sword swings, he can dive bomb you from the sky with either Helm Breaker or a stomp attack, he can fire these energy discs at you on the ground or in the air, even firing them in groups of 3 later on in the fight. It's all solid mechanics that make for an engaging back and forth battle. There's no gimmicks here, no big obvious weak point. It's just a battle with an evenly matched opponent who's just as fast as you are. He also gains a doppelganger in the final phase of the fight, meaning you now need to keep your eye on 2 different enemies at once that are just as fast as each other. Evidently, this was a well-received mechanic, given true Vergil would later take this for his own boss fight. It's a well-put-together finale, with good difficulty, engaging mechanics, a decent amount of spectacle, pretty sick music. It's just a shame it will really receive the credit it's due, thanks to the mediocre story build-up, and the unfortunate comparisons to other, better Vergil fights of the main series. Also, Hollow Vergil from the DLC does not get a separate ranking because it's the exact same fight with one additional bad mechanic, and I didn't want to upset my tidy 60. In summation, Vergil from DMC may not reach the heights of the series, but it was still a solid fight to end the game on. Well done, Ninja Theory. And with that, this game is removed from the rankings. I actually enjoyed my time with the reboot to an extent. The gameplay is solid. It's just the fact that it's a Devil May Cry game that holds it back. Comparisons to 3, 5, even to 4 will drag the game down forever, but hopefully this list could highlight some of the things it did right, especially in terms of the better boss fights. Number 18, Elder Knight Geryon. Hey, remember Geryon from the last video? Well, he's a bottom. How do I know this? Why do I know this? I know this how because he's being ridden around by another man, that's actually a naked woman, and I know this because it's a damn great fight. Elder Knight Geryon is easily the best exclusive V-boss in Devil May Cry 5. Not that that's saying much considering the opposition is Needhog, but consider how much further up the list Geryon is compared to that parasite. Why do I hold this fight in such high regard, you may be asking? Primarily because I love the time manipulation gimmick. I find it pretty damn cool, and it adds to the fight in a brilliant way. Then again, I am biased towards well done time powers, so that might just be a personal thing. Watching this knight charge towards you with a giant sword while you're frozen in place from his time bubbles is intimidating, but you can avoid being frozen with careful positioning and knowing where your familiars are at all times, seeing as you'll freeze them too and nullify your evasion options as V. The knight on top also fires lightning at you periodically, meaning you're not safe anywhere in the small arena. You need to balance dodging ranged attacks and countering melee strikes while getting in your own damage. I find it fun to summon Nightmare and watch the big blob just fall on top of Geryon. Such disrespect. Ultimately, it's a relatively simple fight to sum up, but it's a good time. It's an engaging battle that requires good use of all of these mechanics, and for that, it's earned its place in the top 20. Also, I want to point out, he's even more fun to fight as Vergil. It is a great time. Definitely recommend it.
Don't worry. I'll be gentle.
Number 17, Agni and Rudra. After the first proper boss, I thought Devil May Cry 3 would slow down a bit as we continued our climb towards Vergil up the Temini Gru. Turns out that is very much not the case, as Agni and Rudra are every bit as tough as Cerberus before them. This terrible twosome come at you together, even doing double attacks like a dropping AoE that can decimate you if both of them land clean. Balancing the two opponents while also managing the fixed camera angles is quite tricky, and they're liable to shave off a life or two before you can master their moveset. You're dealing with a mix of sword swings and elemental attacks, but the elemental factor is actually a cool gameplay element. Hitting the red enemy with Cerberus, the nunchucks, not the giant dog, does extra damage thanks to the ice versus fire dynamic. Nice little touch there, game developers. The main way to defeat these two sword guys is to be a better sword guy by smacking their swords with your sword, and then you get unlimited blade works. Remember, the demons aren't the big golem things, they're the swords. You're fighting swords. The parrying mechanic was very cool to figure out, and I loved getting the timing right. It made me feel like an actual sword master. I mean, I did use the sword master style to pull it off most of the time, so I'm not exactly incorrect in saying that. Disarming them is how you get your real damage opportunities, meaning you'd better learn those attack patterns. Or even better, get them to smack each other. How's that for teamwork? After one of them is dead, the other golem remembers that it has two hands and begins dual wielding, firing tornadoes and spinning at you menacingly. So, a tip, take the two demons down evenly so you only have to fight this phase as little as possible. Taking down Agni and Rudra is a tough challenge for the early game, but it helps elevate your skills to the next level. You even get to take them with you for your reward, on the condition they shut up.
Okay, but on one condition.
What is it? Name it!
No talking.
They don't do a good job at it, but hey, points for personality, which this fight has a lot of. The cutscenes are fantastic. Number 16, Cerberus. I won't lie to you guys, this guy was one of the hardest parts of Devil May Cry 3 for me. I beat Vergil's first battle on my first try, but I unlocked easy mode against this guy and then still took another couple tries to finally beat him. The fact I had so much of a hard time against him, yet still rank him among the better bosses, should say something about his quality. After the Reaper, or Hell Vanguard, was more a basic enemy than a boss, seeing this guy was a massive step up in quality and intimidation. Cerberus has 3 heads that each use different ice attacks depending on which one is currently in control, evident by its position in the center. He can rain ice from the sky, shoot ice forward to freeze you, coat himself in ice. There's more ice here than in Ice Age. Keeping with that theme, this boss is liable to make you Ice Age to the meltdown. He hits hard, even when he only has one head left, and his attacks aren't the easiest to avoid, especially because at this point in the game, you'll only have 1 sword and 2 guns, none of which are going to be upgraded highly. His foot slams, his ability to freeze you and then immediately rain down projectiles on you, all of this could make him frustrating to defeat if it wasn't for the fact that he's very fun to fight. The attacks are hard to avoid, but they're fair and balanced, so it's a skill issue, not a design issue, one the game asks you to overcome to progress. The song that plays in the background was amazing, the atmosphere of the fight is engaging, and Cerberus is a cool character. You literally get to slay him head by head, an awesome boss phase transition system, and you get to take him with you as a weapon. They couldn't have done a much better job for the first proper boss in this game. Number 15, Sanctus. The 4th big bad boss fight out of 6, from various demon lords to the Pope? Nani? Don't let his appearance fool you though, this guy's actually a pretty great fight in my opinion. To give you a brief history lesson, Sanctus is the leader of the Order of the Sword, a bunch of fanboys worshipping Sparta as a god. During the middle of a sermon, Dante bursts through the roof and shoots Sanctus in the face. I just want to point out that this, in this context, is basically Jesus dropping down into church and shooting the Pope in the face. Fucking awesome. I love this franchise. Anyway, Sanctus isn't quite dead, and it turns out there's nefarious activity afoot. His plan is to build a giant statue, This one in fact, and use it to summon demons, then kill said demons to make the people worship Sparta. Have you seen Mysterio from Far From Home? It's basically Mysterio from Far From Home, but they did it first. You fight Sanctus twice throughout the game. The first when Nero finds the giant statue, and it's one of those you win but actually you lose in the cutscene boss fights, where Credo ends up dying and Nero gets sucked into the statue, and I won't be talking about the fight because we've got a better one to discuss. After Dante fights the Savior, Nero is freed, and after a boss rush level, thanks Itsuno, we get our rematch, with Kyrie's life now on the line. Sanctus's mechanics make him a pretty decent fight. He wields the Devil Sword Sparta this time around, using it to slice up Nero primarily with massive charge attacks. That's about the extent of his swordplay, he's quite old and weak. He also flies around the arena with an impenetrable shield up and pelts you with projectiles, at least until you do enough damage to break the shield. Guess it's just penetrable now. The hardest part of this fight is chasing him down. He has these mobile buster grapple points near him at all times to hypothetically let you get close, but grabbing onto them doesn't always work, and he flies out of your range frequently. You're required to do a lot of damage per second to keep this fight from being frustrating. And, evidently, I've been okay at that. I've not had a bad experience with Sanctus so far. Beating down the snake is always cathartic, and the mechanics make it an enjoyable time. And of course, the buster finishing move is just straight up awesome. Number 14. Credo. I feel like I'm gonna catch some heat for this one. Sorry bro, you are not a Vergil. Credo is Kyrie's older brother, and Nero's boss as the head of the Order of the Sword soldiers. He's ordered by Sanctus to hunt down Nero and bring him in, and because Credo is a simp for the Order, he agrees and faces off against his adoptive brother with little to no hesitation. Bit of a dick move. After a quick standoff, Credo transforms into this big angel thing, and then the two of you throw down. He's a pretty tough fight. Credo wields a shield and a sword that becomes a spear. He closes in with quick swings and overhead slashes, nothing too tricky to read, and he can throw the spear at you, sometimes multiple times in quick succession. The ability to buster the spears and throw them back at him is pretty cool, opening him up for more damage. It just takes a bit of time to get the timing right, sometimes requiring you to buster right before he throws. The shield is the annoying part. It's nearly impenetrable except for when it isn't, and getting around it can be a hassle, seeing as when you fail, it stuns you, and then he stuns you by smacking you. Nero's pre-Devil May Cry 5 moveset probably doesn't help my frustration getting around this guy, but at least he takes good damage once you actually get to smack him. The fight doesn't last long enough to be frustrating. Even better, Nero gets to buster him a lot whenever he's stunned, resulting in some cool animations. I don't really know how to comment on Credo to be honest. He's a good boss and I hope I've made that clear. It's fun beating him up, his character is fun to smack around and does a decent redemption afterwards, but everyone else I've seen seems to look at him like he's the second coming of Vergil, and I just didn't get that. I feel like I missed something, probably not helped by my lack of replays in Devil May Cry 4. Credo's definitely a good fight, give him a try, maybe you'll see what I didn't, he's just not for me, you know what I mean? Number 13, Mundus. Check it out, a final boss in Devil May Cry that actually lives up to the hype. That's a first on this list, apart from you old man. And fittingly enough, this guy was the first, the conclusion to the original demon slaying journey, and it's quite the ride. After Trish sacrifices herself to save Dante, Dante ascends to Super Satan 2 and fights against Mundus in space, for some reason. This part consists of you flying forward and shooting Mundus enough to build your devil trigger and use it to summon a damn dragon. No idea why, but it's fucking awesome. That's all you really do in this phase because the regular attacks don't do too much to Mundus' health bar. You need to avoid his attacks in this stage, but it's not that hard to do if you just fly around the screen like a moth. It's just like a bullet hell segment, or Crunch's fourth fight from Wrath of Cortex. Eventually, you knock Mundus down and we get into a more traditional fight, taking him on in a pit of lava while he throws meteors and the kitchen sink at you. I gotta say, for a first final boss and the first game of the franchise on the PS2, they sure as hell nailed the presentation aspect. This fight is epic. Better still is when you jump up on the platforms next to him, re-enter Devil Trigger, and then your sword gets so much reach you can cut him down to size easily. Or you can use guns. That's fine too, I guess. After he's dead, we witness the greatest voice acting line delivery of all time.
I should have been the one to fill your dark soul with light!
It's just audible bliss. Finally, there's one last battle against him, which is largely just shooting this giant blob over and over again before we reach the final badass finisher. It's a great climax of the game, and Mundus is more than worthy of spot number 13. See that, Baldy? The old folks did it better. Number 12, Artemis. The third boss in Devil May Cry 5, taking the battles to new heights. Quite literally, in fact. This lady likes to fly. If the concept of ranged attacks materialized into a boss fight, it would probably look something like this. Help that she also has a naked woman inside of her that's also a gun fanatic. Artemis flies around the arena and blasts you with ranged attacks frequently, from energy rings to a massive Kamehameha beam. There's lasers from the sky, lasers across the arena, lasers in a vertical line. It's a lot to take in, but these mechanics are greatly designed. Nero has a lot of air maneuverability options, as I mentioned before, so dancing around her attacks is fun as hell and a creative challenge to stay airborne for as long as you can. In addition, there's also 2 grapple points next to her at nearly all times, much like Sanctus, except these actually work, meaning chasing her down isn't that frustrating. She can also charge straight across the arena to smack you. Dodge that. Another fun part of the fight is when she tries to ascend to the sky to do a super mega ultra scary ultimate mega attack. Unfortunately for her, I have indeed played a video game, so I noticed this and have never actually let her execute this attack. Stunning her out of this leads to a buster opportunity, a deliciously brutal one. Fighting her as Vergil is even more fun, seeing as you can go tricking across the entire arena if you time the move right. It's awesome just watching yourself teleport 50 times in 2 seconds to catch up. This boss is just a great time. For the third boss in the game, it really lets you know you are in for a special adventure, if you weren't aware of that fact already. Number 11, Beowulf. And the final entry to miss out on top 10 honors is Beowulf, one of the hardest bosses in Devil May Cry 3 for me, but also one of the best. He is a big hulking brute of a boss, angry at everything related to Sparta, and it shows. His physical blows come fast and often, so you better know how to dodge and dodge well. He hits about as hard as you'd expect, i.e. extremely, so I recommend the trickster style to get the hell out of his way. He can knock down giant metal things from the roof and launch them at you. In his later phases he can fire dozens of homing projectiles at you. He's got a lot of variety to his attacks, and he gives you no room to breathe as his aggression is relentless. You can really tell his personality through the way he fights. He is so savage. This all leads to a great battle that gives me a real rush every time. This dance is a great one to master. Another cool aspect is that if you fight him as Vergil in another playthrough, Yamato actually does extra damage to him. Kinda like how Vergil takes him out so easily in a later story cutscene. That's because of those previously mentioned type advantages. The Yamato is super effective against creatures of light, such as Big Bayo. You'll need the help. He is ruthless, bulky, and a damn tough fight. But that's why we love him. Fair yet fun fights are the cornerstones of good design, and Beowulf knocks it out of the park. Thank you everybody for watching this boss ranking video. Hope you all enjoyed. Thank you so much for the support on this series. Getting these kinds of views consistently is unprecedented for me, and I'm so grateful. I hope we can keep this up going into the new year. The next part in this series is the long-awaited top 10 best bosses in the Devil May Cry franchise, so be sure to subscribe with notifications on so you don't miss out. Hopefully it'll be out by the end of the year, letting me close the book on this series on a high note and begin my other projects. If you have any thoughts on my choices in this video, please leave them in the comment section below. I'd love to hear from you all. I'm currently taking questions for an end of year Q&A, so please leave those down below as well, or in my community tab. And also, check out that community tab to vote on upcoming video ideas. Thank you all once again for watching, and I will see you next time in the finale of the Devil May Cry boss ranking series.